Oh, good morning, everyone. Oh, that 정말로야. 아니, 쇼바텔레다. 다 남시디 거네 곰제 남시리스. 곰제 남시디네 거레스. 데즈 정로요나 아니 곰제디 주도스.
Good morning, and this is really the weather to meditate. When we meditate, it's nice if we have the weather a little bit cold, so here we are.
다 드링데로와. 당저 곰제더와 곰. 아니서 아니 다곰 세야디 곰지 체외 되는 거고요. 곰지 체외라. 저장다 곰지 체 저랑도 망고다 언저다 유릉부 투브레 아니 다심 교다야라디 렐하오요 말했어. 이나고 미투제 곰잡제도나네 고 칼레클레 다 칼레클레 메시지기 주주 튼두지나라 네 심 남자 야제도에다 된데도 피진 가고 싶어서
So really, when we look at this term meditation, it actually means to make the mind familiar, and then to set out to change the mind. And some of us see each other a lot and have meditated a lot, but actually to meditate, to change the mind is not easy. So in that sense, one has to make a steady, continual effort and not expect instant change, not expect to tame the mind straight away.
다 너는 곰잡니 곰잡니 가르펜도 요래 슬라비나 니다 나로도 정말로 대화 되는 얘기 요래라 대화 되는 얘기 요래서 대화를 해야 되다 심기 되와 이기 되와라 이디디다 곰잡니 도 먼저 온시고 싶고 대화도 아니 등산 미망보지 온시고 싶고 대화를 찾으러 셰 년보니 아니 다들 창동이야도 온시를 롤을 찾아보라고
Larwa?
아니 지 티심보당 두로 잠보당 칼라심보당 다들 상모 망보지 아니 미기 제보 통야도 상모 온시를 됨바 온시를 됨베다 대화 로 디즈 상모 레벨라 대화 숙청보 해된 요지래 드즈릭도 치 벤졸라 대화 요르스와 벤졸라 대화 숙청보 요르와 아니 제가 이나디 템보 개요 말에 교어도 쳐줘 남산 교어도요 봐 셰님보니 셰년제는 가지고도 와셰 참샤서는 야심리 양야수 축된 저 레데다 야지 로다지 칼라를 신부시다 대비네 칼라디 저것도 돼요 칼라 신부를 그냥 사야 많다네요 저거 나거다 아니 지 차대요나 야 둘로 저러지 컴바이나 둘로 저도 건드나 야 차워지 양파 비고더라 제가 축스래요 말다 완실 됨베 대와디 템보메와 간식라 네 투주 퉁둥지래메와 대야 아니 겐지가 람사 교단도야 그래도 만차가 좀 미만차게 당 내가 어디 텐데니지 저거 요랬어.
So looking at this thing we call making the mind familiar, actually we need to know the benefits of meditating, what are the benefits of pacifying the mind or meditating, is because all of us are the same in that we want mental well-being, we want mental happiness, we want mental peace. But what we come to find is that most happiness that people seek is not on the more stable mental level, but just on the level of the senses, the objects of the five senses. So the bliss of that, most people are just seeking their happiness on that level. So in that sense, we get attached to musics. Some of us get attached to the taste of like alcohol. Some of us go for smells. These are all things to do with the five senses. Some of us like a soft clothes to wear. And then, yet others, these are all things that these are gross levels of the senses that we can see with our sense faculties. And what we come to find is that these are very much brain dependent. On that level there, we are very much dependent on the brain's perception. So there's a lack of real stability there, because these are things that are dependent on conditions that are outside of the stability of the mind, these outer sense things. So that means that they're subject to change really quickly. They're subject to change at the slightest external change, then those temporal happinesses will change. So for example, you listen to a nice piece of music and you're distracted by the pleasure of that, but then straight away you want something else. So that's a temporal cessation of that. And then if you are hungry, you want to fill the stomach with food, and then temporarily you're full. But then again later, the hunger comes back. And it's the same when we wear clothes. If you're cold, you put on clothes to make yourself warm. So therefore, what we're saying is that when we seek happiness with the condition of the five senses, there's an instability there. And that instability is the fact that just for a small time there's bliss, but then one slight change in condition and you lose that happiness. So most people are seeking happiness on that level.
Ta gom jawe na ne dilemma de se ting sab ro jero ting sab ro je ngaro zo chang mik zum je sam dang de do
Yeah.
mik zum sam dang de ne sem na la ya ji gang e ro da khare na pha je thanda da ngara be ju yin sirwa New Zealand la ne longba ni ju re sha ne onzol mik se gang e kemindo sirwa ne dang ran zo di na la 당에 가두이 내라 고요로 가는 미신이데 또 춘두당 도절레 하가지래요. 먼저 미류된데 스토어디 빼야 오래 샤스로. 말아 미류된지요데 아 빼야 오래스. 아니 말아라다 강반이도 라관이도 서로 딘데게 엔 단다 가란도디 공반난 데니디게디 강에제 요마라 단 미카셰 단다 맹간나라 샤주체 동해냐 가시 샤주시 면주 배샤마다 단다라나 점블리나라다 저는 뉴스단 강에 요르스로 제장 알아내다 더들래 다 가지래샤 상다나 아니 샘 미마 좀 상다는데 아 당아랑 오네 기우래샤스로 단다 오네 기우래샤스 금zembe 저저 상다담베이나 데데데데 유령아 요래다
Okay. Well, if we go a bit deeper mentally, just closing our eyes and reflecting for the moment where we are. Forget about the past sufferings and just reflect that you're doing okay, just for the moment. Here, we're in New Zealand. We have well-being. We don't have big worries. As I often mention, if we look at ourselves compared to animals, we're doing very well in that sense. And not only that, but we have our faculties, all of our faculties. We have 2 hands, 2 feet. We have all of our sense faculties intact. So we should reflect on that. And also the fact that just within this hall, within this meditation hall, look at us, we're doing pretty well. There are others at the current juncture who are sick in hospital. Some beings are being operated upon. And over and above that, if we look at the world news, there's a lot of unrest and a lot of problems. But somehow we are coping better than that. So just by closing your eyes now and going deeper into your mind, then the bliss you'll get from that is much more stable, more steady.
다 먼저 곰자로 다 될라 곰자라 다 곰시소로 곰시소 쇼베네 진공바를 곰자 아니 대저 뉴뉴지라 곰데 부타고 잡이나 아니데 인다르시 잡이나 아니 거 갈래 곰시차로 곰자 곰시차 대저라 아니 곰시차나 아니 대저 동바라고 다갈라 곰자 자냐 차로 대차위나 다 곰바 당보도 되게 사랑하죠.
Okay. So then the point would be to make one's meditation a habit, to make the mind familiar. So, we want to get that sense of well-being, that bliss. So this small time we have together, we're going to try and make that a quality. And not only that, but in terms of making it a habit, we're going to do it every day if we can. So that means that anytime you have spare time, you put that effort into that mental well-being, then we might be starting to get to beginner level.
Oh yeah. 다드네 당조 군 쇼뱅이라 곰데스 잡은데네다 디젠조디다 직심 메제나나 강연 슈첨모든데 예외 가둘라네 상외다 이상 생기 연된 상외 차다 직진대처럼 삼로 간댔다는 거에 메디더라 데스 쉐비나로 나 기승에만도 이모션디 가나 삼다라다 이모션디야 마한타네 야고요 다 딜 삼로 이모션 거랑 삼로 제 마담제야 삼로 신다지 가나 봐 나나야 야고요 상상으로
So then I thought to sit together in meditation together first, and then after that I would say a few things about the mind, and of course in the context of this life, and also talking about the mind's potential, what the mind can do. This is very important, how to think. Because last week we were looking at emotions, perhaps not good to always talk about emotions. We need a break from that, so we'll look at these other things. Not always good to dwell there on emotion. Yes. So now what's happening is the emotions are becoming non-manifest. You just put them aside for the minute.
Oh yeah, that kulong chikdi ngema lago chiranzo ngedi lendichi shu asro.
Yes. So now correcting the intention, making a good motivation. I will say the words, we can repeat.
Today all the actions
of
my body, speech and mind
of my body, speech and mind
will only benefit others. You need a little bit of big big sound, and you need to put a little more attention. Today all the actions of my body, speech and mind is good.
Of my body
Good. Will only benefit others. Today all the actions of my body, speech and mind
of my body, speech and mind
will only benefit others. Others chance susu tingmasum jor and sigdi thanda samlada.
So again, mentally recite to oneself, reflect on the meaning, and sit.
다 가와금 당하는 줄라 텐데 신변기 삼바상고지 유 가와금라.
Now we should rejoice thinking that we have generated a thought to benefit others. How wonderful that thought. Rejoice in it.
당은 비니 exercise 요.
Mm-hmm.
geva de su dong mo che ne mi zum na woni ne u rung bo ju dang lo tu tian de ne mi se su gu na la nu ba sa bu de le so tian u pa dan de ne de stress dan de sem ba ma ji wa dan khare na tu pa thong so tian o du ste se kom de se shos.
So now we're going to do some breathing exercise. For this, we can gently close our eyes. Just make sure that your posture is straight, relaxed but straight. And we're going to do long inhalations and long exhalations through the nostrils. Be aware of that. When you breathe in, you're breathing in a clarity and having fresh energy, body and mind. And when you breathe out, all of your stress, worries, and anxieties are gone.
Da su samba de be de wo cha song tian go.
Now think, how happy is the mind? The mind has a well-being.
Ta de ne uk chu dang pa dang ma de xie wa chen ya ro ha chu uk chu dang ge do pa dang ge do xie wa chi de.
Now for a few minutes, just be aware of the breath. Now one is breathing in. Now one is breathing out. Just place the mind there.
다 ngö sing du na ne thang ga ra ha di ke ma ta sim ying ru sim chilo la pha nam do mang bo je la tu yor de la ka ya da de be zen che go ma ya u tu dang ge pa da xie ba de ga na ne thang ga ja tu dang pa da ji tu dang pa da ni thang ga 아 저런저 도와도 스타디 많잖아. 그 팀만 원래 요래 시제나. 아니 저런저 사바도도 있나 당가든 제가 이도미도 따라. 저런저 망보다 레뉴도 당가 뉴슈자지 시자도 아체로.
Marilla. So now, if you find that you can place the mind on the inhalations and exhalations, we're going to begin to count the breaths. But if you find that you still have a lot of discursive thought, distractive thought, just don't worry about the counting. Just try and place the mind on the breath. Once you have settled the mind on the breath, then you can begin to count. So now I'm breathing in, now I'm breathing out. It's one cycle. Now I'm breathing in, now I'm breathing out. That's two cycles. So 1, 2, 3. Those of us that are new to counting the breath should try and count to 7 inhalations and exhalations without being distracted. But some of us have been doing this for some time, so you can go up to 20 cycles if that's comfortable.
Hi, that's him Tadawa Digan. That's him Shiwaji, Kagusumu, Digan, Hakawa, she did Statuna. Tadi to you, Sim Tadawa, the pay Pendoshan Resra.
Now, it's very good to be able to rest the mind in the present moment and recognize that peace of mind. Because the benefits of being able to rest in the present moment are vast, are great.
Ta Mikashe, this Kaguya, Sim Shiva, Tang Kagusumu, Sim Sha. Tandenegabla, Dakara Unero. Chikloma, the Chenso, the Doctor, the Namdudo, the Chido, the Shimido, and the Chugi Gero. Kari da Tanda Susu da Kari Kogoyova, de Dadi Kari, but the Shivash. The Regala, the Hagovache, the Ngosimbache. They are not good.
For some people, it's difficult to rest the mind in the present moment in that quiet, in that quietude. So then, you might hear sounds. You might hear sounds of like tractors or chainsaws or airplanes, birds, dogs, whatever. That's okay. You can just hear the sounds. But somehow today there's no sound. So just listen to the sound of your breath going in and out your nostrils. Today is really quiet. Usually we have the sound of flies buzzing about. Maybe today they're sleeping.
Maybe they're too cold.
No birds, no planes.
Oh yeah. 다 쌤 이디 이기디기 야제단라다 지난 탐람 단낭베 그 낭과스는 탐람하고 열었어. 약쇼지 정보 등을 가서 삼바 템포서야 답시죠.
Maril.
정보들 수수 쌤디 템포서야 답시라 안에 단다디 비 가서 디게부도 가서 울로 장가자지도
Yes.
어디 삼바 템포서야 야고도 디 탑란다 약쇼를 당하란줄.
So, in terms of peace of mind, mental peace, we want to increase that. We want to foster that, cultivate it. And within Tibetan Buddha Dharma, there's so many methods to do that. But the best of which is to make the mind stable, to have stability of mind. And to have stability of mind, the one we just did of counting the breath is the best method for that.
다데디 유네 곰자가 여러 아디시 뭐시 아니 다데제 니와데라 다디라 먼저도 윤 조금세 그래다 제금 그래 제금 잡네 아니 셈기 윤대야 제당로라서
Right, so we don't need to talk too much about that breathing meditation because we practice that, and you know about it. We practice that a lot. That placement, that single-pointed placement meditation for stability. But there's a second type of meditation where we should do a reflection. We should analyze, so forth, to increase the good qualities of mind.
당한서 디기세네 저여로 칠라 저쇼래로 틸락버드 말한저 예라 수수 응어서 저이니기 미다 키다 남시다 저라 저여다 당한서 미디로 수수 응어서 저이니기 보고 정모 레갈레로 다도 당 동해 지연에 두줄라 되는 것이 용거래 디게 지연에 두줄라 되는 것이 용거래로.
Now, this thing we call mental happiness, mental bliss, has a direct correlation or connection with those around us, whether that be people in our environment, dogs, cats, our pets, the weather. Certainly, just looking at it in terms of our people around us, our friends, our colleagues. Sometimes they are going through sufferings, sometimes they are going through happiness. That all has an effect.
당저 다른쇼 한데 곰자라 밀레 펜도 치기 있으러. 안수수 틸레 니 미드저. 다 펜도 치기 있어 곰디 삼로 당에 밀레 펜도 쳐다 밀레 펜도 쳐라. 수수 틸레 니 당보다 밀라 랍시러. 틸레 니 미드저. 교원도서 람산 통구도 알아.
Yeah.
교원 람산 통구를 미교원 람산 통구를 지. 교원 통보다가 아니 수수 굴론으로 이제 당아 미들레 펜도 치고 제장에 그런 도보이나 조모이나다 될 존시도 다디 에 교당도 서로 남사 비저 좀 주었다야 카시 굴론 매베톤에 수수 야고 임바다 미피저도 독자 임베스로 나와샤제 주었다야 배전 치고요 다들 전에 영화야 말했으라티 배전디 치기요 말했어 미피저기 좀 동구도나 아니 제 주었다야 배전 마셔야지 수술을 좀 걸려도 다고다 수수 다 수수 셈 야디야 컨데 땅고도 수수상다로 방금이 밀레 펜도 해야 돼 밀 펜도 지야 렐하면도 하러 당보딜라 수수 셈디마 마투버지 수수 셈디 아니 셈 마투버식 소토버지 해야 돼 근데 되네 니와딜라 아니 미 표조 미딜라야다 대전 당보대 수수스 마투고냐고 그랬다 드링트와 대전 당보대 답시 제일 수수스인데 마투고 심 시와냐도 배전시 대전 니워데 당원에 러빙 카너스라다 표조래야 배가 참 잠재게 간대 종고도 잠재도는 로고 가르치고도 어디 저라다 삼로 당보 삼로 땅으로 와 일단 코로나로 봐 펜도 가르치고도 예네 메치토야 가르도로 수술 누가 가르도 수술 집에도 받아 수술 누가 매버지나 아니 펜도 시부체 되네 상상을 펜노버지도로 제자 엔디미델 펜도야 누가 가르도 수술을 삼다 누가 민도나다 누가 요바지 칸데 소고도 어디르다 어두스체네다 다리 둔다데 검조 디자레스라 항저 디잡샤나
Essentially looking at how one can help others on the ground in terms of meditation, taking the second type of meditation, which we said was more of a reflective, analytical approach of increasing the good qualities in mind. So first we observe those that are near and dear to us, those close ones, those loved ones. And we have to be aware here that the faults of those that we're living close to, we tend to see at once. Just before we did a motivation, didn't we? And we motivated at the outset today that we're going to do our best to benefit others. And we had a kind-hearted motivation, behind that, whether we are relating to, partners, friends, whatever gender. In that sense, then you might have a kind-hearted intention and be able to affect those around you immediately if you see those faults. But more often than not, what we come to find is that we try and change others that are close to us and we're pushy about it, and it has a counter effect. It doesn't have a good effect. It would be much better initially if we looked at ourselves and we tried to improve our own minds. And this is because it's really not easy to bring about a change in others without having done it in oneself. So coming back to that, then the first level we had to try and reach is a mind that's not doing these projections out, a mind that is not hallucinating. So therefore, we are stressing putting effort into your own mental peace first. That's the first level. And then the second thing we're looking at is how we can help others out of loving affection. So coming at helping others out of a heart of concern. And this has two levels. Think about, what you're able to do in reality. Because often you even might want to help others out of loving affection, but that also is counterproductive because you mean to help them, but it doesn't hit the target because you're not really being effective. So then the second point is, how do you increase that ability to help others so that you can be effective?
그래서 나다 미망고 토라 relation 가가지로 모르겠는데요. 그래서 overwhelming 질라거다. 백깔에 카다 로망고님도 돼. 그래서 년대라 미니가 가서 그래서 년대네. 컨트롤 제로 디 직패 왕슈 제야당 팬도 제 피조기 나 팬도 지기 유 등기어들래 자와디 팬도요 말에 배 컨트롤 지야게 넘버 차로도
라렐라.
어디 툭지 팬도 제보다 컨트롤 제보니 여만 제보시 컨트롤 제디 government 어디 둔두도 government 미다 가가 그래요 둔두도 government 둔두도 딱다 하고다 컨트롤 신이 미들 밀로 따용고다 뭐네 지 잠부 진이들 꽃을 코고다 둔두도 제상한저 디 미망버지 디니 베 미스안더스탠처로다 스스 팬도 지기 튕거들 컨트롤 제진지 배 아니 디 심나라 마가와차로다 마가와차도네 아니 다른 링로 아니 릴레이션십 다른 링로 어디 제가 이거네 팬도 지기유나 제베토네로 북경 링보게네 저와게 팬도 지고로 메시지 nga yawayin ko mo tu jare nga posi ko dende samlo de lep chana ene pejen de kabu cha do do dewa de be tha ring do do ro de kyoran ngoro sammo mejen na nyamnyo yor wa su ta da ko re nga mi de da nim do be kabu chung relationship jumzen khare di su chidan ka do ngarang chidan khare do 파 피조선 좀 지거도 아무 수수 시단 가르도 피조 시단 가르도 아랑도 디게라 메제나라야다 초보단 초목에 저와 타 니워 중화요를 가가 전 빼때 각보 시워 중화된데 메제나 망고 중요로 그래서 저 example 렌제요 디용야데 데레샤스네 제공 잡제로 하고 있나 수수게 냠뇽게 디 약쇼레 제 약쇼레 감상하고 빼야고 데려.
I see and talk to a lot of people about relationships, often in times when the relationship has broken, has split. And one listens, and then what is a sense is that we can't see the clear line between trying to benefit someone and control them because we think we can help them. So what tends to happen is that although we may mean to benefit other in a relationship, it ends up being a controlling factor, or it looks like you're having the aspect of controlling, that kind of appearance. So that fuzziness is there because you can't decide. There's no clarity around what's really benefiting that person and what is a kind of control issue or controlling attitude. Well, we can see that with animals, let alone humans. Animals hate it when people are always controlling them. You can see that when their eyes, when they look, oh, look, that one's coming. But if there's a loving attitude to that animal, there's a much more, they know that. So then underlying that, of course, it's going to be the same with humans, because humans will understand that if you're coming from a loving kindness attitude with less control, then the aversion won't happen. if the controlling attitudes are really fostered, then what happens is the relationship starts to be a distance or a split, and eventually people become so split that it's really hard to heal. What's being said is that if you really want to benefit others long term, we're talking about long term, then this loving kindness attitude in relationships is indispensable, the long term view. In that sense, then it's very important not to have the attitude that, oh, I'm right and so is wrong. That would be counterproductive. Just look at it from your own experience. From your own experience, look at relationships, not just your own. How sometimes people come together, why are they coming together, and then indeed, what is it that makes them separate? Here, what we're meditating on is the way of doing, the way of relating. So then we can start to see that. So what's being said is that the best meditation is from your life experience. What is it that brings two people closer? What is it in action and the way of doing that separates people? Reflect on that.
다들의 곰디게다 비니 엑서스 대체네 말하는 메제나게다 relationship 약슈 찬조 미지어로 당하나 메제나라 미데다데 미데다님도 데벨레도 키워 마숑스로 만에 비지 communication 야고 수수 선배 가고 배저 가고 쉬워지 메제나랑 알아서 중요 여러다
야
근데지야 삼단지 나랑 메제나라 근데지 대기 내가 들렸다 나랑 메제나라 배야고 중서 아니 대화야고 채고네 다디 내가 오네 내가라 저원에 디 잠쟁원에 디 빈진이가 직질 이제요 빈진이가 직질 잠재 요 인상 연구요 디 라트고로 어디 야 수수 냠뇨 메제나 냠뇨요 어디 야 직세부터 sö제네 디 간의 중도 삼로 시단다 네 야고요레스.
So with a little reflecting and awareness with breathing, it's very important for us to think in this life upon a relationship we've had. Let's keep it human. A human relationship. So someone that you have connected well with, that you're happy with, and use that relationship as a thinking point. How you were happy with that person, how you made a good connection with them, and you think, whoa, that relationship went well. And so reflect on that kind of mutual affection you have with that person and introduce that, be aware of that mutual affection relating to your life.
어디다 곰잡셔스.
Yeah, please reflect on that.
방법 비니 exercise test.
So first coming back to just being aware of the breath before you analyze. So ride the mind on the breath.
that's susu mezinange. 오늘 그다지 가서래. 디지 체셔서 간 내가 직상단 다지 미직단 더치면 내가로 연구로 지내가라 어디 다 간의 중도 내려와서 직 다리고 끼고 강에 매워야지 야고 용야지 유진 가르래도 삼는다다 대제를 원에다 잠종 유진디게야 자초용으로 이제 딱 해지 모르겠어 대지매 수수 망고라 수수나네다 대 유진 밀이야 자와치야다 오늘 가시님이 자와치야로 어딘데기다 잠종 대저디다 단단디기 수수 메제나가 냠뇽디 규jen 강요디 마음발라 규jen디 돌 베전샤드로다 간다
Larel.
어디 제금 다 제금 섭들 제금 잡아
So now, reflect on one's life. What was the period or the time in your life where you were most happy, most content? And then you'll think it was when you were relating to someone, connecting with someone, and you had a good connect with that person, a good relationship. So what were the causes and conditions behind that? Can you recognize that kind of support? The support that made it a good relationship. That's important. Because if you can reflect on the clarity of that, then how you live your life day by day is related to that in terms of this life experience. So when you put effort into that reflection, that is analytical meditation.
아야 다 규jen 망고 요르와 규jen도 세부 차나디야 월다 당에 답이는 다 미수수 삼당당당 수수 로라 도저로 담을 요르디 디켄자여데 인지민지 미치기 김젠디 야고인 비켜요 말 수수수 미카시 지기지라 이제요네 아니 기부용야로 야 삼산라 카시 지기질 쿠샵로 파지 쿠샵체 쿠샵이나 아니야 그 툴람디 야고용거도
Yeah.
이제 쿠샵디 님중 쿠샵체도 개천분이서요.
Yeah.
가족의 파 쿠샵당 저와요나 아니 미피조디 주 쿠샵당 저와 연구도 쿠샵 아니 오pen 마르시아다. 안내주 테스트 디모디셔가 람상베 야 파래야지도 와디 파르기요 말.
알레.
때내지 용어로 하다면 용어로 감사테스 말해보다 까보다 낙고 소리지. 먼저 메시지 까보 낙고 간다 대퇴요 말했어. 미망보지기 야면은 까보 용어로 야면은 낙고 용어로 대 강의 상마 대간을 채고요. 까보 낙고 간다 대퇴요 말해 대간라 대화다 동에다 땅용 써야지 요르다. 초월 먼저 초월 동에 초월 대화 초월 땅용 요르. 같이 야면은 대화 용어로 야면은 동에 야면은 까보 용어로 야면은 낙고 용어로 어디다 강의 책이요와 까보 낙고 용아요. 까보 낙고 간다 디버데 예, 땅용 요르에서 땅용 되나 아니 되어요래. 땅용 되면도 잘다.
So when we reflect on that time when we were happy, so many causes and conditions, no, behind it. a lot of things coming together for that. But that's good. It's good to be clear around that and bring that up in your mind to be aware of it. And yet for some people, perhaps that happiness isn't just coming, from one particular person. There are other things, other factors. It could be that they have a particular faith, or then in some time, or a conviction in something that makes them happy, isn't it? And then for others, it's the fact that they are able to respect. Because if we have this thing called respecting others, then we tend to find that things go well. But not only the respect, together with that is a sense of love. And because what we tend to find is when there's a respecting and loving kindness attitude going out, then mutually that's going to come back. Right, so there's that kind of interdependence there, but also the fact that you are open-minded. If you can be open-minded, that goes a long way to that well-being. Because here, what we have to guard against is then things go slightly wrong. One slight small thing, and you blow it up. It blows up into something bigger than it needs to be. Please don't blow them up. In that sense, it's not black and white at all. Life is not black and white. It's not like that, like this is inherently good or bad. It is the fact that the mind actually has these positive qualities, negative qualities, and then there's this neutral ground. So you have to be aware of this kind of neutrality. It's not either one color or the other. Of course, problems will come, but we don't want to make them worse.
아니 계지셔도 삼시 나 삼시들이셔 삼시 인지질을 때문에도 먼저 삼시라지도 직질을 삼시시 삼시도 어다 아직 당에데 미들라데 채나 되게 말해 다데 이제나 코이나 모이나데 강이 되기래 아직 뒤쳐고를 얘들로 와쳐고래 내가 강에요래 파르벌 삼시시야 디 계좀 쇼래다데 디케다데 페이지 내가 치슈르셔
Kishan also injisik di samshi say di concern sigirwe.
Yeah. The better that the better dona tanda de dona antigo.
So that also having this attitude of the welfare or concern for others, I think, is very important. Kind of always looking out. How would I help them, I think that's important.
Oh, there are some shit. There's some shit like the yes, till things over here. That till days near can help man. Some shit a did channel to Pena Monzo Pena there were near Peshavin, telling Yingon on the tak, on the Sanimaka do in a Kalanim do Sagero.
Yes.
Any Michi Talitugo, Ah, 거 달리트야 가보여래. 거 달리트야 가보여래 라고도.
Okay.
말해. 거는 달리 망부 가두이나 두고도 또 그런 걸래 가 그래. 딱 예쳐 그랬어. 어디래? 삼실래.
Okay. Samshi is like, I'll give an example of this word of an awareness of our kind of concern. So we have a Sunday meal together. And then there's someone who always ends up doing the dishes. And then others say, oh, just let them do the dishes. They like to do the dishes. What they don't realize is that person could be over it. So it's like a concern for them, you know, that you want to help. Yeah, because that person is exhausted by always doing that thing, but you kind of fob it off, you know. So we want the opposite of that.
Yeah, they'll 미망 보던 데씩 they'll 그런 칼라 쇠 가보여래. 아니 유식도. 미디 칼라 가두이나서는 칼라 가그라라. 가두이나 달려도나 그 칼라 가그라 아니. 다 가두이나 칼라 다 가그래. 딱 예쳐 그랬어. that
Okay.
뒤로 가라도 다 저부 도모바를 가두인 나진래 되데 미지가 가두이나 디슈위시 냐냐잖아. 아니 요구라라. 다 말해 드린 전한테 같이하고 슬람나 아니야고 여러. 무슨 내가 정말로 준주래들.
Yeah, I've seen these things around small details, like the person that's always cooking and others say, oh, leave it, they like to cook. But you don't know, they might be over that. And cases where people always end up doing, the same people always end up doing the dishes, and they could be tired of that. They want a little bit of a break. So then that attitude that says kind of, would you like a hand? You know, I'll do it. So we find this attitude of, I'll give them a hand, becoming less in our society. This we need to bring up.
어디래 대나 아니 파 로봇에 주 로봇에 아니 어두스다 아니 전부 차용 거라라.
Yeah. So what we tend to find is when the help goes out, automatically the help comes back in, and then there's a chamboche, means friendship is automatically there.
어다 계지주 다래 둔다디 저 딘데돌라 야예다. 소소 틸레니 미디다. 가워요레스 용마샤체. 땅 예직 제고 다 지난데 지난 망부체에서 땅 예제고 쓰라. 이제는 아니 야고요레. 아니 가워토네 내가 제데 제거로 빈진이가 대체나 아니 난게 내가 제라 강에 친요 말에. 심미시 지게 마르니게 마르네 간단질라. 디시웨시 장마체 돈데 자동가로도 포트가 돌아. 포트 장마 똑바차. 근데 망고 통스당에. 근데 망고 통. nga dinde kawshirame pe sha to poverty na la sha na ti kaw me khadu tu sha na ya wala da ngara mi chi ji go na da mi ge ya mara mi mang go ya da ne pho dang me do ya pho tu ga do cha dang pho tu.
Yeah, so that would something we can take away and work on perhaps during the week, is the nearest and dearest you live with. Don't just leave them with the jobs they always do. Maybe offer to help out and do something different for a change. And try to do that with joy, those kind of household chores that they might not like to always do. Because what I've observed is that it's left once, it's left twice, it's left 3 times. And then when you go to have a cup of tea, there's no clean cup. That would not be so good. Because then you have to wash your cup to have a cup of tea. I've got a personal habit of washing my cup when I've used it. But that's all right for me because I live alone. But if it's a lot of people, it's more important, no?
Sometimes at monastery we have some 5 friends. One friend like that, and cook and live there, eat, live there, you know. And we need a cup, and all parts need cup washed, you know. Making tea, cup washed. Cup need wash, and then you know, we have sometimes we do like that. One person do cleaning and put soap. One person do wash in the cleaning the water, and one person do 아조지야시도.
Yeah, one person dries. Yeah.
미숨님들 내가 쟤는 뒤죽뒤죽 난 차로더라.
Yeah, 3 people work together in a minute. The job is done.
야고다 아니 계절로 시기 되나. 아니 네 야고다 등산한도 계지셔야 돼 융타거든. 아니 찌개 섭 자가체 찌개 퍼버치 찌개 아저치 찌개 파드나 미시 되즈 주즈 까먹하시지는 상마 기징 상마 타리 수여자로 야고도 알아 지 미찌개 적어주나 가보도 알아 자성 뭐야
Yeah. If there's like a team doing it, you can make it quite fun because you can have a bit of a yarn while you're doing it, and then the job's done really fast, and it's all done, and then the dishes are done type thing. But these days, if it's left to just one, it takes so much time by themselves, and they're not having that chance to interact.
Nowadays, your friend washing cup, you do like that, and this is not good, right?
Yeah.
From knowledge, me picture like so colors, Susie Kawana go for dinner. They are wonder.
Yeah, they're preparing your meal, and you're just on your apps. So they're
colors shows and
they say, come and eat, and you're still on your apps. You know,
that they pay that doesn't go to doesn't pay doesn't have such.
Yeah, this is a time this is the inception of that time. This is beginning to happen. So these are the points where we have to take care around.
Yes, ordinary. That read in that
This week seems to be about these ground things, these practical things.
학벌도 그러다 그러고 소소 도구들 다 등산 다주데 다네 주주들라다 모던레네 소셜 미디어 두는 고시브 코더라
Yeah.
어두즈릭도다 레 밀라라고만다 소소 틸레 미디 계자만지 셰나 계자데데 셰위나 아니 규책도 계자마셰나나 하고문도 비저데 강에 가려요가 내단 가려요 하고문도 아니 하먹으나 로봇이도 말아라 tinderoredo ne ne jawade tha ring roda.
These days, so much social media. Well, in that condition, you might tend to speak to one's close to ones less. Well, we want to speak to them more, actually, so leave the social media a minute, because if you don't speak to them, you won't know them. You won't know what's going on for them. And in that case, you won't know their difficulties. And if you don't know their difficulties, how could you possibly help them? And then over and above that, the distance becomes greater.
잠재 예당 근데 잠재 예당을 유연도 상당고도 잠재 미들을 잠재 지경이 지고를 되고 말아 원에게다 데일리게 네 practical 된데 강하다 로 비교 동의 내가 진짜 지구도나 고 수수라고 지야당 로 도시기는 안에 파주 직질라 삼시체 직질로 고체 더 도고 relationship 되어들어 직질로 고체
Yeah. So this week we were looking at the increasing loving kindness and affection and the reasons behind that, the causes and conditions behind that. Not just a thought, not just thinking about doing it, but the day-to-day concerns, the day-to-day details about how to help friends out and to talk to them. That's important.
Oh yeah, that's it. And then 달래강의시 저는 망보시부지다 지도난데게 요인상 쇼베 곰데스죠. 니메공라다 미다 미투들도 가도이나 셈날 아가 밀라 펜도치니 밀라 밀라 펜토버지 지긴 셈디 가도이나 냐고래서 꿀로나라 원리 베네핏 아다세죠.
Right.
어디 셈날라 가도이나 텐토베이나 체쇼도데.
So a lot of us are working in the center, or we have a daily practice where we meditate in the morning. Well, having done that, and when you meet, when you interact with others, try and keep that benefiting intention that you made. May my actions benefit others. Try and hold it and make it work.
다드네 니 건다 나는 줄리로 나는 줄리도네 가셔도 곰자고요다 곰자는 야고라 그래서 제 곰데스 잡나 야고요라 네 곰다가 내가 갈래카네 곰자라 문드는 마 니쿠글라버들라야 다 드링에 노드 그렇지 내가 만들고 가르 채도 네 만들고 강에 가르 채서 런 교영 차디게 가르 채고 nge mandibu khari cheson mi phijo ngal mandibu khari cheson da di remason sam chösha che ro chungna desi ma di duzibe byang sor che jempa di digbatu su thaya ke samu desi tang su tangma su ro
Yeah.
ane den nangbe shungne den de nimbu top shi sia den de yor da digba thaya tablen den de gom jabje to ge ne du samno de tang ane keje shwe de chösha che de ro da nge di remason da nge dil ne ju dir te pe de to nu chimbo cha so samda de ane 다 진짜 지금에 삼산이 내가 내가 양자 지금에서 양자 탐자체로 그도 양자 탐자체는 감삼질라네 다다 참샤고 그래서 아니 수수수수래야 즉 딩주를 실내용으로 근데 당보되는 거죠 하고 상상하는 거죠 무엇이 도문다로 예주대 무엇이마도 아니 kum시디도 수수 kum시 냠바데 냠바에 하마고 되기도 지선 뒤 건다마니 그걸라보다 삼로 데스 따야데 배편도 전부 교양 차대 삼로도 식당으로
And then practice for the end of the day when one gets home from work or whatever and one is about to sleep. Of course, if you can do a meditation before sleep, that's best. Even if you can't, it would be good to do a reflection about how the day went before you sleep. So some things might have gone well, that's good. But if things didn't go so well, it's good to reflect on that. What didn't go well at work in terms of one's interactions? And some interactions you may have had during the day at work didn't go so well. So then it's good to have a sense of awareness around that, or we would say a sense of regret. If there is that sense of kind of regret and recognition of that things didn't go so well, you can do what's called the Dutsi Bebjang, which means that there's a visualization practice you do that's a downward flowing nectar visualization where you visualize coming down from the enlightened beings. Light, nectar comes into you and you purify those misdeeds. Okay, so within the meditations on Buddha Dharma, we have the 4 opponent powers, which are a countermeasure to any negativities one may have done in the day. Of utmost importance of those 4 opponent powers is regret, to have a sense of remorse. I made such and such a mistake, and then before one sleeps, to resolve to not recommit those mistakes again the next day. So then very much these meditations and reflections become habit. Now, talking about habits, sometimes we're so used to bad habits, we can't even recognize them. We don't even know that we're doing that behavior. So here, doing this nightly reflection on how the day went, that's a good place to start.
되네다 윤댕 차야가 쳐들어.
그러와.
안 쇼베 곰잡샤 다 고는 야고지 네 양란다 밀레 편도체 네지 다 밀레 편도 해사데 말한저 수종어서 여된죠. 뭐서 더 여된죠. 로와 지조디 나도 미신이디. 미지조 선상 아니 펜 토야 돼. 다 편도체 돼. 계속 뭐 쇼르더라. 펜 맞도는 다 편도체에서 양 인지 민지게 배 아니 피지게든데 로고 말 곰잡네 편도체 두고 열어.
Right.
셈생이 누가 전부 쇼지라고 곰잡제는 배적 동에서다. 하고도 수수 저연이 지 파마 빈자 드즈리들라네 곰잡제 배적이 야고용야다 배적 동에서야 된데 상다나 그 레기 저여가 인자 펜토고를 지 셈생이 누가 전부 쇼로 안데네다 수수 지 연된로 곰잡 야제도 참바다 제외 냠내로 야고체도 샤삼 어다 드린다 간에 야구 총샤서네 가와곰 안데 개와도서 영어체로 영어 야구체 자 삼바상보 심지 탐제네 디지용야다 심지 탐제에게는 동해세당 네 지 점블링이 네 나서도 조부 시야다 된데를 명람자데 개점보러 안데네다 지 가와곰다 산이당 애들의 망즈지 개와들의 망즈치긴세 니 쿠고이나 아니데 계획하는 니 후보에는 니 주주 족둔제 구구에는 이제 삼 개월로 개월납 전부 싸고 하셔도 니세야 돼. lungma denrwa ni kugala semdi gewayina ni di gewa charo
So.
ni kugala me semdi migewayina ni di migewa charo cheda ni lungma denrwa ko
Now, on the virtuous side, then we're talking about cultivating when we wake up a kind of good motivation, this kind of altruistic thought, how we can benefit others. That's very important. There has to be that kind of thought to make one's intentions benefit society going out, that intention to benefit out, from within to without. So in that sense, then here we're not just talking about physical, certainly not. The mind is a very powerful thing. And if you meditate just with those thoughts to help society, that can go a tremendous way to releasing the sufferings that other beings are going through. How does that work? Well, in terms of one's friends, one's parents, because there is like a karmic link and a connection there. Just by fostering these thoughts of benefiting and loving thoughts to them, that will have an effect. So trying to increase your own positive states of mind, and then recognizing during the day those positive states of mind and increasing them, so that when you get to the end of the day, those attitudes that you intended and carried through become virtues. Okay, so now what happens here at the end of the day with the virtuous side? Here we're going to dedicate these merits for the welfare of all sentient beings. Well, we're going to dedicate them so that sentient beings are well within this world, and we're going to dedicate at the end of the day that these diseases in the world go away. Now, if we can dedicate such virtues, which are positive states of mind, before we sleep, then all of the sleep that we have becomes a virtue. It becomes a virtuous sleep. Conversely, if we go to sleep with a negative mind, the sleep becomes negative. That's because sleep itself is a neutral mental factor, but if it's qualified, as Geshe mentioned, by these virtuous thoughts, then it becomes a virtuous. It's good to do that.
Adoche da nima chila pendoro kazuchi do che. Nima ne nima. Dunda dawa lolo. Do chene ne lo ya ji nyushu sumji shibjungap ji jedwa ne. Ngone susu ji sambade. De zhlor ya da. Ne semnala ji gawa komyaro. Ani ji thobu thomoe de smaro twero tende de yungura. Do chene ngone mi meje sinye de meje tandan dem bas야 되다 meje 다 tan다 연교지 차오래서
So if one is able to make this daily practice one's habit and sustain it day, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, into the weeks, by months, do it for a year. If you can sustain that 10, 20, 30 years, then you start to notice some change taking place in the mind. There's more space. The mind is more relaxed. You'll start to find you have more friends. And when there's that more open and relaxed attitude, then that's what we call making a life meaningful.
다디 나랑이 메지 텐단데 뭐도 다르지래. 가시에 메지 텐데문데 수수수 삼다나 담으러.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's my take on that's my take on a meaningful life. You might have yours. Everyone's got their own kind of view.
Yeah.
So you have to practice and put into practice what is a meaningful life for you. I'm not saying you have to do like this.
어디로 다 좋아요나 좋아던데 온라인을 유나 민영이 유나 건서 좋아요나 거 세워 참면은 좋아요나 좋아데스.
Yeah. So then it's time for questions. If we have any, that's fine. And also the online people, if they've clearly got a question, we can go through that.
You have a question?
No? Okay.
좀 세워하고 그러잖아.
Yeah, was today's talk clear?
방문들라 삼바 템보서야 다시 지야지. 니와들라 다레 든다들라 아니죠. 잠재야 제다 잠재. 아니 잠재야 제다라 수수기 메제난게 아니 냠뇽들이야 키제 아니 수수 틸레니 미드들. 다 잠재 잠바단 저야 제 가주 검토도 검이나 아니 셈 얘기 대화 검잡나 얘기 대화데 아니 주링 로야 배진제 어디 레스타로
Okay, in that sense, recapping what today was about. Firstly, cultivating stability of mind with meditation. That's one thing. And then secondly, taking away for this week the thought of increasing thoughts of affection for others, the kindness, the nearest to the nearest and dearest. And then, but very much related to your life's experience, of course. And then meditating on those around you, so that how you interact with them, because what we're talking about is trying to increase the mental well-being, the mental bliss, and this is a means to do that.
다 곰 무투지 자레로 나도 깔래 자고로 깔래 맞는 되용 말봐 말하면서 뭐 배샤 치벤절에 깔래 자고도 깔래 맞는 민도와 지난시 곰 자에라 깔래 됐죠 주주디 땅 아니 데스 배전체 아니 다 당보도 그룹인데 님도라 곰자 되듯이 아니 간단 수수 나라야 지고 곰자 곰시 차비나 오늘 best friend 로
Yeah, best friend, the best friend. So meditating takes a lot of effort, really. You have to put the efforts. Just like if you want to have a good salary and wages, you have to put effort there. So in that sense, then make a time, try to make a time to do it. And of course, first we're going to meditate as a group. But then as one goes home and you build up your personal practice, you can meditate alone. And that's great because when you start to get that mental well-being, that's your best friend.
곰시 차위나 지메야 로침보 차스나나 아니 TV 걸로 건 대어 말이라 근데 TV다 간디나 지 nhập 들어 와라 내주 야가 전에 쉐야 말이야니 쇼스tim도 아니 데로 아니 데네 투즈 만로 강해요라 곰자 곰시 차스나나 아니 투즈 축스 도래 알레 다오라는 편도 배첨보라
Yeah, when meditation becomes a habit for you as you get older, you'll start to renounce the TV because the TV, well, what's the big deal? What are you going to see there? Really, the conditions around that. But the times that you are watching your mind in meditation, you get much more out of that, and the awareness of those moments. Best channel is your mind. Best thing to watch. The best thing to watch. The best show. Temo. The best show is your mind.
세상 딜레야다 배샤는 되어 말했어. 아니 로 빌다오다 빌다니니요 말했어. 아니 콜라 온 렌 유메 심데니요 말했어. 로 유메 심데니요 말했어. 아니 간대야고더라.
How excellent. When you meditate, there's no money for that. There's no bill for that. There's no monthly fee for that. You don't have to be online or not. You don't even need power. No worry, right? No worry, because you can switch on that whenever you want. There's no danger. You can walk on the mountain, look around, you're right there. Wherever you go, you're there.
Yeah,
the TV's already there. You don't need to switch it on.
Oh yeah, that is how.
We'll stop for today.
Yo